Welcome, busy gamers. Today we're going to be talking about Across the Obelisk. What's good, what's bad, and that all-important question, is it worth your time? Now, before we move on, if you're enjoying this content, you want to see more from me, please go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. That and any other engagement you can bring to me will go a long way in helping me develop and improve. Also, I've broken this video down for you all. So it's going to be in chapters, and if you've joined me for another worth your time video in the past, feel free to go ahead and skip straight to the section you're most interested in. Let's get right into that overview. Across the Obelisk is a cooperative deck building roguelite game that's currently only on PC, but it is adding support and looking to launch on consoles in 2023. This game is similar to Slay the Spire in its core gameplay, but Across the Obelisk iterates on the established formula and it adds several interesting aspects as well. At the time of this video, there's about 16 unlockable characters in the game. During each game, players are going to take control of just 4 of them, however. These can then be mixed and matched into any combination or formation that you would choose. And yes, formation, who's front, who's back, who's in the middle, does matter. These combinations, as well as those positions like I just said, is going to change how each match plays out and the tactics that you're going to employ. Now you can play this game solo, where you control all 4 characters, or what's different particularly about this game in my mind is that you can also easily and logically play cooperative with your friends, or via the online matchmaking system with up to 3 players if that's something you're interested in. Now in this particular format, all the heroes are drafted. So for example, you pick that you want to play the first spot, which is typically a tank spot, or the back slot, which is typically a ranged DPS or a healer of some kind. Each one of you is going to control your own hero in multiplayer, but synergy and cooperation is required for success. You can't just go lone wolfing this and think you're going to be able to manage and carry your team to victory. Now that's especially true in the higher difficulties. There are 3 primary ways to play the game, which I'm going to go over here. The first one is adventure or story mode. This is really where players should start out, and it's where the majority of the unlocks are granted. The story plays out over 4 acts, and it follows a group of adventurers who set out to rescue a captured princess. I know, very novel. But the story will change based on the path you take, the characters you bring, and the events you participate in. And different choices and events are going to spawn between runs. So it's not just that you have the exact same choices available to you and you can choose different ones. There are indeed different choices presented to you between different runs. While the main story is going to be similar between plays, each character does also have their own unique dialogue or their own special options on how to interact with the world that you're playing with. They also may have unique events that make each run feel pretty unique, and they encourage you to try new paths and options. In addition, the second and third acts that you're going to play, of which you're always going to play 4, they're variable and they come down to player choice between the current 3 existing biomes or scenarios. Now you can take 2 of them in any order you would like for your Act 2 and Act 3, excluding 1 entirely every single game. Now the order does matter, as some events and unlocks will only spawn under very specific circumstances. The story mode does have a significant amount of meta progression, and you unlock permanent perks for your characters as they advance in level. This allows you to focus them and build around specific strategies and synergies, and includes multiple save slots so you can save your favorite loadouts and builds. So for example, I typically play Evelyn as what I will call a battery, or someone who feeds energy into the other heroes. That being said, she's also very viable as a frost mage, and that's a build that I have saved for her as well. Now, in addition to the perks you have that we just covered, you're able to customize your starting deck in the first town, and you'll typically have the resources to build a strong core deck right from the very start of this particular game. Now this is impacted by additional levels of difficulty that the game refers to as madness, but for the most part, you can build the deck you want to start with and upgrade it just a little bit over time, or refine it based on the type of enemies and the types of challenges that you plan on facing. Let's go ahead and talk about the difficulty a little bit. Madness is a fun and interesting way in scaling difficulty with two somewhat separate tracks. Now, I probably shouldn't refer to them as tracks, but this is how I outline them in my mind. The first track is linear in progression and just increases the overall difficulty. It grants enemies things like better stats, lowering the starting resources that you receive, and the battle rewards that you get at the end of each combat. It does a few other things at the very highest level, but as a general rule, what you're really doing is making things harder to kill while also making them more damaging towards you. And now the second track is more of a special case. It limits or changes certain game mechanics. So for example, it might make debuffs like your bleed, your poison, or your spark that you can apply with your characters top out at a certain number of stacks. The current max difficulty in the game is Madness 16. Now, it's not for the faint of heart, so if it takes you a long time to reach that difficulty, or if you prefer to play the game at lower difficulties, there's 100% no judgment here, nor should there be. I believe my standard difficulty to play at now is Madness 8 to 12 for the majority of my games, as at higher difficulties I feel like the modifiers make certain builds virtually impossible. Okay, on to Game Mode 2. Game Mode 2 is going to be Obelisk mode, or Obelisk mode. I'm not sure 100% how to pronounce that one, but we're going to make this one a little bit more succinct. This is a bit of a more randomized adventure than your adventure or story mode, and in this mode you have less control over your initial decks and the perks that you receive. The focus is more on your ability to adapt to any situation and make the best of any options given. The madness difficulties and everything do still exist in this, and it alters things, but for example, you pick your characters and then it gives you card packs, for example, that have specific types of cards for your characters. So for your healer, you might get a Saint pack that is focused around healing, or a Protector pack that is focused around preventing damage. Now, I really enjoy this mode, and it does help me break out of my comfort zone, as I tend to fall into more of the linear or consistent builds in the adventure mode. But I do miss some of the items and random events that occur within adventure mode that are not present here. It's also a tad faster, so that's something to note. Now, I say a tad, it's not a lot. Game Mode 3 is going to be the weekly challenge. This is a weekly version of Obelisk mode, and this is one where everyone receives a set party and positioning and starts from the same seed, meaning that the card choices that you're given for the initial packs and the in-game rewards were all going to be exactly the same for all of the players. This mode's a lot of fun, especially as a competition between friends, and is one of the most balanced ways to prove your skill. So if you're wanting to gauge yourself against the community, it's one of the most balanced way to do that, and I think they each have a unique puzzle that is fun to solve. So let's go ahead and move on to the review. So at the time of this review, I have played Across the Obelisk for about 200 hours on PC. It's a bit over that at this stage, but not a lot. I've unlocked all but one of the 129 achievements. It's a pet that has eluded me several times, and I'm also frequently ranked on the weekly challenge ladders, and I have cleared through Madness 16, which is currently, as I said, the game's highest difficulty. I've done this with a wide variety of builds. It's not as if I've just won and done this and said, hey, I've achieved. That's a bit about my pedigree from the game, but now I'm going to tell you what's good about Across the Obelisk. So, what is good about Across the Obelisk? It is by far the best adventure or story mode of the genre, in my opinion. I'm not talking about the core story from a story perspective, but the little events and how each and every character has little secrets and different interactions that make repeat runs exciting and fun. For example, some characters gain access to special separate maps that others either cannot gain access to or take massive downsides in order to do so. Exceptional unlocks in this game. There are also exceptional unlocks. There are so many. And something as simple as a new pet can unlock or drastically change the way a party and a character can play. I also think that unlocking new characters and pets often come in the form of quests that force you into new situations and patterns as well, which makes them feel more truly like an achievement instead of just make sure you go here and check off a single box. It has more flavor, it has more feel, it has more to do. I also think the customization in this game is amazing. This is a minor thing to think of in a game like this, but if you spend a lot of time staring at it, while minor, it is nice to have core unlocks focused around how your character looks. If you've played a character for a long time and made it your favorite, or your main, so to speak, you can alter its look to suit you, and the items and weapons you pick up along a given run will also be reflected in the game. I also think there are well thought out and fun weekly challenges. Yes, some of them are awkward, but they are balanced within each other, and I think that is one of the most important things, as well as now they're adding a weekly card back that you can unlock by doing these challenges, which gives you just a little bit more customization and flavor to the game that you love and you get to play. Now, also, this is something that they market on, and this is something that they say makes them different. But I'm going to call out, again, the ability to play multiplayer as a good for this game. Maybe it shouldn't need to be called out, but it's one of the few games of this kind that allows you just to drop friends into the action, and it does well. It has added a lot of disconnect protection, enabling you to resume your game easier, and some smooth integration between having people pick and choose and play their chosen heroes. So now, what are the bads, the downsides to Along the Obelisk? Across the Obelisk, I am throwing that one off there. So I'm going to throw the first downside of balance. Now, I don't want to harp on this too much, as overall the balance in this particular game is solid. Because of the way higher levels of madness work, though, they are set in a way that's fairly restrictive on what builds or types of builds are possible if you want to consistently clear content. Now, many of the builds I find to be more fun or exciting don't really fit into this mold, and therefore at times the highest difficulty seems less fun to me. I'm also going to point out run length as a negative here. As a rule, I would say runs are going to last around 2 hours to complete. They can definitely be longer depending on the type of event you do or the additional areas you unlock, and the player speed as well. Some people I've played with make really snappy decisions, they move forward quickly, but some of the friends that I have or the players that I play with do tend to really overanalyze their situations. Now, because this game was built to be played multiplayer, this can really distract or restrict how much and how often I'm going to want to be playing with others. At least how easy it is to schedule, right? I have to tell somebody we need 2 hours, we need 3 hours, we need 4 hours to play this game. So I think that is a good dovetail. Let's go ahead and do our channel's focus. Let's talk about the ephemeral efficiencies, so to speak, or how does Across the Obelisk treat your time? While solo, you can save, you can resume the game at any point whatsoever. However, in multiplayer, this is not an option in the same manner. With those issues and the fact that runs take 2+ hours to complete, the time investment per game is extraordinarily high. I recommend if you're a busy player, you play solo, you pause it, you bring it in, you bring it out. I've also found, because of the game not being real time, you can play taking turns in the background during other tasks or while catching up on simple work tasks, making it a very convenient game. That being said, this may not erase the issue of taking so long between runs, and unlocks and character progression will come too slow for many of the players. or it will become frustrating if they miss one choice within a long event chain and they have to do an entirely new run to obtain that last pet or that last achievement, especially when that last pet or last achievement may be something that spawns rarely. I personally don't like playing the exact same seed over and over again, preferring to do something different, and thus I might not even see the ability to get that new pet again for several runs, meaning it's 10, 20 hours later before I even have the opportunity to take something else. And it might indeed negatively impact my run, making it incompletable or difficult to complete. Okay, I think we've talked about it enough, so let's go on to the final scores. Overall, I am giving this game a 10. I believe it is the first game I've given a 10 on this channel whatsoever. It is a very crowded genre of deck builders, and this one in my mind stands at the very, very top. Slay the Spire is an amazing contender, and it's a gold standard in the genre. But right now, when I have time, I've been choosing this particular game every time. So, what is the Ephemeral Efficiency score then? This is the one where we talk about how well it treats your time. We do this one out of 10 too, and this one unfortunately only scores a 6. Now, while I think everyone should try this game, especially if you love the deck building genre, for those of you who have hectic or busy schedules, you're going to be needing to be cognizant of just how much time this game takes. You're either going to be needing to be willing to play it in the background, or needing to schedule some time to play it if you're going to play it with friends. If you're playing it solo, you can hop in, you can hop out, but because the game focuses on multiplayer, I do think it unfortunately has to be hit a bit for its inability to jump in and out or to complete an entire run. Those are my thoughts today on Across the Obelisk. I hope everyone has enjoyed this video. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, or if you have some constructive feedback on the video in general, I would love to have your comments below. I will do my absolute best to engage with and respond to all of them. So enjoy playing games, and I'll see you next time.